Good morning, good morning, good morning. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes, yes, yes. I'm working out the technical issue and we're going to start again once you hear that. Can you guys hear it? Should be coming up here on the delay. Good morning, morning. Can you hear? Hearing the music is faint. And you hear Mike? Yes. Sounds like we have some vocals. All right, you guys sit tight. I'm gonna reset something. I'm going to go again. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna do this, and you just got me all warmed up. Let's go. Hey, sound familiar? It's that good music. Good morning, morning. How to be your own publicist. I'm gonna go live. Coming to you from Pastry Virtuosity here in Chicago. Yes, let's go. Everybody ready? Whether you're joining us live or somewhere around the world on replay, welcome in, welcome in. Let's get some energy going and do a deep dive into this one. All right, good morning, good morning. Hey, welcome in, everybody, welcome in. If you don't know me already, I am pastry chef Jimmy McMillan from Pastry Virtuosity here in Chicago, and welcome to How to Be Your Own Publicist. And this is sort of the pastry edition. Everyone here looks like they're pastry chefs, but if you're connected to the food industry in some way, it's all valuable information. What I do as a pastry chef consultant is improve, motivate, transform pastry chefs and sweet businesses, one individual person chef, business, bakery, restaurant, manufacturing, anything connected to pastry, one at a time, making those contributions to serve the pastry community and the bakery community, worldwide, mostly here in the United States and a lot here locally in Chicago. But the subject of publicity, it's a big subject, right? It's something we all want more of. We should want more of. So whether you work for another business or you work for yourself, you're an entrepreneur like me. I mean, I've had a long history of working for other people. So a lot of these things I've employed even while I had a job somewhere else. So it's all valuable, and you want to start to grow that outside of yourself. This is one of the 2 fall classes we're having right now. Many of you were involved in the Pastry Chef Expansion Challenge, the beta edition. So the fact that you have continued on to something much more specific and involved is exciting to me, and you have my respect for taking what you're doing really seriously and wanting to get to the next level, whether it's by means of a pivot and something that was motivated outside of your means, or whether it was something that you've been doing for a little while and just want to do it at a better level. Thank you, and I promise to deliver to you the means to do those things. If there's something that you need that you're not getting from me, just make sure you let us know so that we can bring in other people and other resources and anything needed to help out. Basically, the subject of publicity, I feel like I know a lot about. I have been working, in some larger hotels, but in restaurants and bakeries and that. But before, I was in the music business and kind of got pretty far into it in terms of being a young person in my early 20s and being able to travel around and make recordings and start to look at, having major deals and contracts and all that. It's definitely a business, and that's a business that's great at publicity. They know how to spin things. And I notice, and we all notice, some pretty, average musicians, not so great bands, um, can be really successful. They can do a lot of the things that you need to get publicity. They can have, whether it's what we call a stunt, something flashy that whether you like it or not, it's always going to be there. And we have something every year. There's like one, two, three, five different, things that are just, novelties, but they, have worldwide appeal because of something that they do. And that's really the publicity. If they had that stunt and there was no one there to report on it, it would just, fizzle out and die. So we want to think about, how do we create that sizzle for your brand? How do we bring all the media outlets to you, and how do you go to the right ones to kind of connect for publicity? Because keep in mind, that's like free. It's free, right? And more powerful. As we get into it, you'll see that you can spend money on marketing, you can buy advertisements, but publicity, you can't do that. And it's a wonderful thing when you get momentum from other people saying great things about you, right? We all want that. I wanted to say that the person who got me started in this was years ago, was Jeff Trigger at the Driscoll Hotel. I was part of the reopening team. This is a property in Austin, Texas. Shout out to Austin, Texas, my home away from home. But, I had traveled around a lot and worked in Austin and worked in Seattle and worked in New York and opened properties in a couple other states. But when I was in Austin, what was really important and a learning experience for me was Jeffrey Trigger here. He was the GM. He's since moved on to open, many properties all over the place. But he wouldn't spend any money on marketing, wouldn't spend money on PR, maybe a little bit on marketing, like here's some coupons for the rooms, or, just letting people know what you have, but no full page ads, quarter page ads, no ad agency external. We just had one person on PR, and he was able to host, package, promote, and have a plan to get our property way back from pre-open all the way up into the opening. That sizzle that we're going to talk about. We always say that, like, we want to bring this sizzle. There's telling your story, there's getting some news out there, there's something that's newsworthy, and then there's sizzle, right? We want to get that sizzle for your brand. We want to say, hey, maybe my competitor is always in the news and getting that attention, and why is that? Why aren't we getting that? Maybe they're always getting the good stories, or always mentioned. Well, there's a reason, and it's usually someone behind there working. But many of us don't have the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month that it costs to hire a PR firm, and that's okay. Maybe that money would be better spent building our business, ensuring the future of that business. It's tough, right? A lot of businesses we know don't make it. So if you're an entrepreneur, hats off to you. It's great. Like, we almost should never, if you thought about all the businesses that failed, you should almost say, like, why would I do this? But we do it as we have a passion, want to be at the leading edge of what we're doing. And, that's amazing. For some of us, you're working at a day job and you have your side hustle, which you hope becomes your main hustle and your only hustle. And that's how a lot of this starts for all of us. I worked for big companies for years and only recently kind of made that departure. So at any rate, however you're making it, putting it together month to month, year by year, what we do in Pastry, it's just amazing. So if anyone deserves success, it's you and us. So before we dive into the workbook, the first thing I want to do is start out with some visualization. And so I want everybody, if you've done this with me before, visualization is important. and knowing where we want to go with things really helps frame the work. So for this next, 45 minutes to an hour, let's focus on those things. So our visualization for a couple minutes, we're going to close our eyes for 5-10 seconds. Just think of all the places that you would like to see your name, your brand, your products and services publicized, reported on, celebrated, complimented. Oprah Magazine, Forbes, trade magazines, pastry arts magazines, all those places, in the news, on TV, locally and nationally. What are those publications you see yourself in? I want you to see yourself in, step into it, and just see the headlines, see the photos, watch those interviews with yourself. And 3, 2, 1. Well, great. Thanks for that. And I know, for some of us, that's a little bit woo woo, right? It's a little crazy. And for me too, and again, you can do this in private. I just did this here for you guys, but basically, no one has to see you do these visualizations. They don't have to understand. They don't have to agree or disagree. Maybe I'm not always sure about things, but if that is something that contributes to success and it takes me 10 seconds or 5 minutes, I'm just going to do it. It's not a big deal. I think the simple things sometimes are the best things. So hopefully you have that list in your mind where we're going to end up. And let's take a look at the session. Session 1, make a name for yourself. And what is publicity and why do you need it? The impact of publicity, which can be great, you'll see. And showing your expertise. You're probably an expert at more things than you know. I think in our field of pastry, it's so deep. There's so much to know. There's so many things to do. And we sometimes feel like we're not experts. But I guarantee everyone that's here watching this now in these sessions, you're an expert at something. You've been doing this a while. And we just have to figure out which of those things you want to broadcast and which of those are monetizable, which of those things will help you get publicity. And then continuing on, what's a publicity plan? I skipped over your competition's always in the news. We mentioned that in the opening a little bit. The publicity plan, that's pretty much what this one is about. We're going to come out of this. Homework will be making a publicity plan. Our calls will be honing that publicity plan so we can get that put together. You kind of need that and what that is. And then how to be newsworthy. What things are newsworthy? What things will get you promoted? What things that's not the sizzle? What things are not the things that are going to add to it? And again, offline, you're going to outline a publicity plan, and we're going to work on that. So, advertising versus publicity. What's publicity? Why do you need it? And advertising is pay and publicity is free, was what it comes down to pretty much. So let's look at that a little bit. Sometimes they say advertising is pay and publicity is pray, right? You pray that people will write about you, because at any given time, different stories bubble up. There's other things in the news. Basically anything that's an emergency, well, those things are going to be reported on first, right? So you have to be patient with this game. You have to put things in the pipeline. That publicity plan will help, because those things will then be a regular queue for you to get those opportunities, and you have to keep getting in that queue. And then when they start coming out, some things are short lead, long lead, 1 week, a month, 6 weeks. Maybe you're writing for a magazine, you want to byline some articles. It's important to get your 100% voice, 100% clear voice out there. What you want to say is another strong avenue for an expert pastry chef or baker or chocolate maker in the world. Advertising, you have control. You know how it will look. You design how that ad looks, when it will appear. You set the dates, what it will say. I mean, basically a lot of small businesses are using social media. That's great to get the word out, but that's just you saying things. Now, if you think about it, Instagram is like you stunting, right? You're just like kind of bragging. Look at this cool moment. Look at this cool photo. This cool thing. That's me winning, right? And that's okay. But we just scroll through that now, right? And the latest numbers that we're looking at show that people are starting to get tired of doing that. Especially some of the younger people. Some of the younger generation, they don't want to look at Facebook. Email marketing might not be for them. And we'll get into our target audience, but for publicity, you want a broad audience and you want to target it some messages specific for those groups. And advertising, you can target anything you want. You can get super specific, what it will say, all the messaging. But again, we kind of know if that's something you read and is paid for and we see it over. It may have some influence in terms of educating us on what someone's goods and services are, but it doesn't really compel necessarily someone to make a purchase. It's just something now that I know about. Publicity, on the other hand, no one really controls it, right? It's amazing for that reason. It's uncontrollable, something that doesn't live anywhere, it lives everywhere, and is influential for that reason. It's powerful for that reason, and it captures hearts and minds of your audience, primarily for the reason that someone else is saying something with, presumably no motivation other than they're excited about it. So how do we get people excited about it? How do we get the right people excited about it? How do we find the news outlets and get the right person excited about our goods and services, our personality? How do we make ourselves really fascinating? We talked about this a little bit on the bumpers for this class, but you're fascinating to someone, right? You're fascinating to your best friend. You're fascinating to many people that you haven't met yet. Your business is fascinating. It's going to capture and captivate. And one thing that helps portray that fascination is that free publicity, having someone else and be impactful with that. The impact of publicity, some of the results of generating publicity, those are things that, pull it up here, you want to consider. It's 5 points that we can speak about, 5 things that will help you after you generate the publicity, what the outcomes are going to be. And when you think about all those outlets in our visualization, think about how it helps us become the expert, become someone people look to, maybe reach out again to and say, hey, start generating their own stories coming to you saying, hey, we have this piece on Thanksgiving. I just finished off a submission for some online publications that now is kind of the late end of people looking at the holidays. So that really means when you're the expert and those stories come up, they're going to reach for you, reach for your number, especially regionally. There may not be a lot of competition for those comments. Of course, sell your products and services. Just seeing that someone has, a quote in a story. It doesn't have to be like the headline story all the time, guys. It can be literally one quote, hopefully the name of your business, perhaps a link. So much online blogs and magazines are really good for getting traffic pipeline to your store or your landing page or wherever you really want it to go. Can educate. Sometimes having our stories be purely for the betterment of others is also a good story to share. When we do good things for other people, when we serve other people, that's good publicity. And that's kind of the results of those things. Number 4, shaping the public opinion. One, we have become aware of you, that you exist. Maybe they're a little aware, they know the place you work for, they know the things you've done, but kind of getting that public opinion about a topic or specifically about your business and it's attached to you. Some impacts are, more than one of these. It could be all 5 and provides the credibility. that credibility you can build on. So if you have one byline article and it's something that people read and they like it, you're going to get more. If you are quoted and it makes it easy for the news writer to finish their deadline, I mean, we're going to start operating a little bit in their world. We're going to start kind of viewing things how they view it. So we have to consider what makes it easy for them and to package and promote. I think one big confusion with this process is that, I mean, even if you had a PR person, that the news outlet or someone else is going to package that or get that information and story from you. They're going to take it and they're going to package it all up in the bow and really nicely and send that to the news stores, but that's just not going to happen. There's a little bit of work you have to do to put your press release together, to package your story so that someone can write about you. We'll go through all the formats. I'll give you some templates that you can send out while you're generating this PR publicity for yourself and your business. And showing your expertise, you know, again, I love a good word cloud here, and think of all those things that have to do with publicity, you know, innovate, got to be innovative on that front line. Or maybe it's not innovative to you, right? You know, again, we're used to it, but in the past, you created something that you think other people know about, but you need to let everybody know. Be strategic, you know, classes like this helping us be strategic. Creativity, sharing, opportunity creates opportunity. Advertising, you know, we're going to use the internet, we're going to promote, we're going to get those things out there. And again, we know our story, we know the things we've done, but everybody doesn't know those things. Everybody, you know, we get used to it, and I think we need to get used to sharing those things more frequently. You know, we become really complacent to them because we know all about it. But if you think about it, I mean, look at what's an easy example. If you look at your Instagram feed, maybe you have 700, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 followers, whatever you have, 5,000. And then you put up a post, you get 7, 20, 40, 50, 100 likes. Even 100 likes based on 1,000 people, that's not that many people really experiencing it. And if you can look, if you have a business Instagram account, kind of recommend that because you can get the analytics from it. And if you look at that, you can see out of all the people that follow you and others that might come across your information on a hashtag, really, it didn't impact that many. So you almost need to share that story again and again in different ways. And again, social is good. And we talked about that before in other classes and in the Pastry expansion challenge. Having that platform be solid, having people find you and being able to learn about you, having people connect with you, viewing your work, happens on a lot of platforms. So you really need to, you know, have it on Instagram, post at different times on Facebook, post on Twitter, use LinkedIn, use all the various outlets, and more are coming up all the time. One way to kind of promote some of these stories back on itself on social, I don't know if you've seen, you can look at my account. A lot of people, I'm sure you've seen it, you may have already, is Linktree. Linktree allows you, it's an app that allows you in your bio. You know, we're always saying, hey, click for the link in the bio. That requires you to change out your bio, you know, link constantly depending on the story. This allows you to have a number of stories. So if you get something, number of buttons, if you will, in sort of a linear fashion where people can go to your bio, now they have 10 links. And that link can be to all your PR. That link can be, you know, to your website. It can be to anywhere. So when you start generating these news stories, or maybe you have some older news stories you want to relink to, Linktree is a good way to put that on Instagram. So now I've got my story, my marketing. But if you click to it, here's some things that other people are saying about me. So check it out if you haven't already. It's a little pro tip for the linked, you know, links. And that can go anywhere. It can go on LinkedIn, Facebook. That Linktree link doesn't need to be on Instagram. It can go anywhere. Alrighty, so why your competition is in the news. And I'm going to take myself out of here so we can look at this. They do something newsworthy or useful, right? They share it with the media. They package it in the right format. They deliver the news to the proper editors. That's important. Reporters, producers, again, deliver it to the proper editors, right? Locating the right reporter, the right producer, and their spokesperson is always online and available and there for interviews, always available. And that's important. It's effort, guys. If someone comes back to you and says, "Hey, this is great. Thank you for pitching a story." We'll get into pitching next week. Thank you for pitching a story. You've put this on your plan for publicity. You've targeted the outlets. And now they're reaching back to you and they're saying, "Okay, it's go time. You have until Monday." Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait till Monday. Don't meet the deadline. Writers, producers, editors, they operate under stringent deadlines. As pastry chefs, we get that. For them, it's like the banquet's going out, fulfillment on the online sales, a project that I'm working on. We need to surpass those deadlines. They may actually respond to and reach out to many experts, and really the better quality information and on time comes through. But if you were a writer and you're doing several stories and you got that information early and you're able to get ahead and finish off a story, you might just do that whether or not you put a deadline out. So if someone gives you 3 days, try to turn it around in one, maximum 2 days. Always offer to give more information, but you need to kind of attack the publicity plan. You need to kind of get that energy going and make it equally important. It is easy to put your day-to-day operations above your publicity, but realize that this is so much more. It's kind of like equal, right? What people can say about your business becomes your customer and client. You're still selling and sending things out, doing your services, producing goods. If you are working in another business and you need to get some press, just remember stepping outside of your day-to-day in your business to answer calls and connect with people. It's all for you now, right? So although it could create some conflict and it has become a little complicated for me in the past at times, I definitely put equal value at building my name and having my story get out there to what I'm doing, especially if I work for someone else. So that will, in the end, if there's any kind of static from them, if there's any kind of, pushback, it's good for them too. So it doesn't work both ways though. Press from a business that you work in where they're getting publicized for something that you do in pastry, it's good and a little bit good for you, but you're always tied to that name of the business. And I'm telling you firsthand, the more you can separate your name from even the biggest business, and I highly respect and appreciate the companies that I got to work for. They could have hired any number of pastry chefs to be at those businesses. At that time, I was their choice, and I'm thankful for everything they taught me. But at the end of the day, you need to build yourself up. Just like you don't want to be known in pastry as, this chef's pastry chef for very long. You want to be known as someone that works together with them and start using that language of separation, of independence, of entrepreneurship, where you are yourself and all the things that you stand for and all the things that you learned in pastry, and you're a specialist and something that business would need another specialist to replace, right? We are experts at what we do at the best and highest level. We bring something, an individuality, a story that no one else can bring. So if we do all these things, basically we'll be in the news too instead of our competitors. And it can be friendly competition. I am a big proponent of getting to know your competition inside and out, making friends with them, partnering with them. If you are small business, even if you're a large business, but if you're a small business or a person, it will not hurt you to model their success. It won't hurt you to reach out and you can be completely transparent and say, hey, how do I get to where you are? How do I learn from you? Or, what is it that maybe a pain point for them in the business that is easy for you because you're small and lean, right? And that's a great area to look at. If you're small, you want to have a niche, right? You don't want to be everything to everybody. And maybe this business that's talked about and popular, they've grown a lot, they've been built on a lot, and you can kind of come in and get some publicity based on not being, the big guy, not being, being the David to their Goliath, that's a possibility. So publicity plan, here's the meat of it. This is what we want to come out of it with, is a solid publicity plan going into our calls this week and going into the lesson next week. Session 2 will go into this, but then we have a couple other things. So we're going to do the publicity outline today, and your publicity plan, to be clear, the larger plan, that has 3 things, right? So the publicity plan outline that we'll do today defines your audience, kind of tells how that audience gets their news, how they define, what's newsworthy, how you can identify that in your business, and how to set PR goals and target the right media. And that's what we'll do today in our exercise. And we'll spend a little time together here online, and then, of course, throughout the week. And then next week, we'll look at the media toolkit based a little bit on that. But you need a great way to present, your background, your story, your biography, something up to date. Maybe you have those things and they need to be kind of brushed off and updated. Products and services that you do, press coverage, awards, things from the past. You see behind me a bunch of awards. It's something that over time, as a year or 2 passed after, a period where we're really kind of winning a lot in the video game and had a platform with pastry chefs, the pastry competition that we had, Chicago restaurant pastry competition, which was really for everybody. We had a lot of national chefs involved. But anyway, having these things after a while become, again, commonplace to you in old news. And that's not good. It's not great for you, right? Like you still have those accolades. It's just kind of gets old again, being the person that says, oh, by the way, do you know I have Emmys? Oh, by the way, do you know I was a top 10 pastry chef? We have some top 10 pastry chefs watching this right now. Shout out to them. And, whatever awards you have, we need to find a way to keep them current, right? Get a award page on your website. Get a throwback to certain things, but you have to do it artfully. And again, just a throwback that you put up isn't great. But as an expert, now you have to give your resume. So it becomes really important. What's that key information? What are the samples of your work? So now you can share all the things you've done in your past. It gives you a reason to revisit them, and it should be current. And as you have several years under your belt, there's probably too much to tell people. So you need to find a way to cycle through those things and have other people continue to report on them. And then part 3 is the editorial calendar. So when we get into session 3, we'll have worked on this, and you'll have your publicity plan outline, and then you'll have a media toolkit, and then the editorial calendar that, it's important to schedule. Scheduling can be kind of annoying. You need to be able to reassess all the time. It shouldn't be something that's confining, but if you don't have some type of schedule, it will be difficult for you to get in queue like we're talking about and kind of get that press running. And what's the result, the feeling that others have when press is coming out once a week, twice a week, once a month, is that this person's really doing a lot, right? Like it develops energy and really helps your business, because now you've got all these people talking about you over here, and then your audience that reads it over here, they're like more interested, boom, they want to like learn more, visit your website, maybe buy something, be motivated to learn what all the excitement is about. What that sizzle brought you is lots of attention. So scheduling the press releases and the articles, targeting the publications is important, and keeps everything in sync, because it's not just, hey, all right, I'm going to do that. You need the date that you got to start the article, the date it's due, maybe some notes as you go along. One tip from me is to open a file. If you get an email from an editor, someone looking for a specific quote or news or article, I will copy and paste that into a file, write some quick notes. I can print that out. I can put it up on my wall. I can attach it to a calendar. I can do a lot of things to keep tracking it. So you have the editorial calendar and you need to be able to track it. And, that gives you the consistent metric. If you're not in the news somewhat frequently, you really don't know how impactful it can be. The occasional news story is okay, but again, it doesn't create that energy, doesn't give you what you need to really have that presentation like, you are the expert, you're the person in your community, in your state, sometimes in your region. Maybe you're living somewhere where there's not a ton of competition. That's great. May not also be a lot of variety in news sources. So I would say getting that national press is important. If you have already a foothold locally, broaden that scope. Look to some national press. National press back home looks great. Like everyone that sees that in your region will be excited. Even in a big city like Chicago, I will tell you, I never overly emphasize that I'm a Chicago chef. I live here. I love the city. I love what we have in a culinary sense. And there is a lot of chefs here, and there are a lot of great restaurants and hotels, and there's a ton of manufacturing for food. There's a lot of great bakeries on the manufacturing side. There's some interesting concepts on grab and go and in grocery, all these things. There's a lot of food science going on. There's a lot of publications. That means there's that much more competition for that. So for me, I want to have appeal in New York and in Arizona and Texas and in Washington. I want to contribute like I have for magazines in Italy, magazines, we have So Good Is Notable in Spain, just ways to get that publicized. Now, maybe you're not going to sell anything to someone in Italy. Maybe you will, depending on your business, but maybe that's not going to be a huge, segment for you. But then when you get that back and you can share that with people locally, again, that really bolsters your opinion locally of who you are. So, kind of get that calendar scheduled. But when we do that, reach for those big things that we thought about in the visualization. Reach for those media outlets that are really going to give you a lot of momentum. So to do that, we have to consider how to be newsworthy. What is newsworthy? What's not newsworthy we can avoid, because if you get known for not bringing news, then that's not good. Some things that are newsworthy, right? Unique, one of a kind, first ever, first time ever for you. It impacts a local environment. Something in schools or added to a new sector, or something that is timely in your area. Expert advice we've talked about. I'm the expert and here's some tips. I'm the expert. This is the trend. Above and beyond service. When you have an activity, probably most of you, because you're in here, working hard like you are, probably your idea is to go above and beyond. We're all hospitality minded. Chefs tend to over deliver, right? And if we're smart, we sort of undersell a little bit, although that's hard when you're trying to broadcast. But you can be really dedicated to go above and beyond, and that's newsworthy, because again, that puts you right, above your competition. Hot trends or enduring trends or trends that you created, create a trend or find a trend that exists and do it in your way, and kind of get involved in that, and kind of have to always be out maybe set up some Google alerts for, pastry, Google alerts for bakery or desserts or specific things, so that when you see some momentum on trends, you can reach out on those and put those on your editorial calendar before that trend cools off and, not so many people are writing about them anymore. Interesting new applications to products, like maybe there's something that you have that's different, maybe it's a spin or a twist, and kind of those attributes are exciting. So not just that you have chocolate pieces that you can break with a mallet, other people have those, but like the packaging, the experience, maybe it's giftable, maybe it's a gender reveal aspect, so now you have a story, and they can even tell a story about a customer who used the product, and then it explains the attributes and their satisfaction, and roll it up. So you kind of start to get the idea, and bring some national recognition. Being newsworthy, it's not just newsworthy locally, it's newsworthy elsewhere, really anywhere. What's not so much newsworthy, we kind of know because we read some things. Most stuff that you read about is newsworthy, right? Like it gets vetted out, and there's something, if you think about it, when's the last time you read a news story that had like no appeal at all? I guess it could happen occasionally, but someone had a seed idea, and at least it's mildly interesting, or has some way to answer a question that you had, and it has some use, to it. So some of these things that aren't newsworthy is like day-to-day stuff that might be interesting to you and to your business, and things that you do. In itself, it's not really interesting, and that's kind of my viewpoint on some of the videos you might post on Instagram. It's interesting to watch someone, pour hot liquid and sauce over a dessert over and over and over. It might get a lot of views. It's not really newsworthy, right? It's just sort of visually appealing. How do you turn that into something newsworthy? If you created this dessert that has this pour over for a specific event or a specific group, or for a charity, or for something that has a bigger story, and there's something meaningful about that dessert. It was all made, it's all vegan, it's made from scraps of other desserts, and so there's another story there, then it's newsworthy. But in itself, those day-to-day things just really aren't. Stories that don't have a visual angle, something that people can't visualize by reading. And let's face it, people read and understand what they read probably less than we give them credit for sometimes. We often show information in pictures, and that, a picture is worth 1,000 words. They see that, they get more out of it. Written things, have to be really visual, have to have a defined beginning, middle, and end, and not take too long to kind of move through that beginning, middle, and end. They lack dimension. How does it impact me? If I can't connect to it, it doesn't matter how cool it is. I'm looking at it at arm's length. I need to bring it into the reader. And again, knowing who your audience is, that will really help out. And, having the right news for the wrong outlet, that doesn't really help anybody. Maybe it is good and newsworthy, but you're in the wrong place for it. And again, you have to appeal to the editors and the reporters and the producers. It's what they think. Think about it in pastry. How often is it not about what we think? How often do we disagree with like what's going on in the business in terms of, is that the best way? Is that the best way? Is that the best item? Is that the best, way that we want to be portrayed? It doesn't matter, guys, right? It's the bride's wedding cake. Doesn't matter if we think it's sort of ugly. I admit there's limits, and the true artistry of the pastry chef is to infuse their vision with the vision of their clients, infuse their vision into the story, right? So you're going to see, you'll start to get some responses from editors about stories that it's not quite what you're doing. If they say to you, do you have a molten lava cake? We're really writing about new takes on lava cakes, right? I don't think lava cake is any of our favorite, but they are around. People buy them and they taste good. So there must be something for the larger population about lava cakes that they really like. But a story about lava cakes is not newsworthy, right? But maybe carrot cake, lava cake, maybe red velvet lava cake is something interesting. And then how you got to it, why, maybe there's a story, and maybe you don't do it at all. Well, make one, make a lava cake candy bar. Find a way to construe something newsworthy that brings attention to your business. Here's a outlet saying to you, hey, if you have something, if you deliver something newsworthy, there's a good chance we're going to publicize it for you. You have to jump on those things. So being good at publicity means you have to stretch a little bit sometimes. Maybe you don't like a lot of the trends. So what? That's not important. Don't be dull and boring, right? Don't be someone that's like, hey, I don't do that, right? Hey, that's just not me. Some people are that way, but it doesn't really pay off to be that way. So let's get ready. Let's get into our outline, publicity plan outline. And I'm going to get myself out of here so we can look at it. It's okay. So focus up, have a sip of coffee in the home stretch here. This is the homework and really important for next week and a big part of that overall publicity plan. Here's the outline for what will be that publicity plan for you. I'm going to start on the left side. We're going to work down the left column first. First of all, you're going to put your name, business name. If you're a chef and you don't have a business name outside of yourself, then it's your name, or connect them together, date. And then first section is the situation and the overview of like the current problem. Okay. So this is what's going on that I need to solve with publicity. What's that bigger picture? If I am the small guy and there is a bigger competitor, then that's what I write. I'm not the biggest, I have a bigger competitor, even though, a good way to phrase this is, even though I've been gaining momentum and I have a quality product, I'm still number 2 in the marketplace, or 5 or 10. So I want to improve that. I want to be number 1, right? I want to be equal at least to the best in the marketplace. Another situation might be that even though I've been, online with my store for a couple of years, my sales are low. I want to drive sales. Those are some pretty normal business things, but put it in a phrase that helps you understand the current situation and the desired result. And then once you have 3 of those, if you need more, there's the back of the paper. You might have 4 or 5. 3 is good to really illustrate and get started and focus, but you again want to reassess this all the time. And then looking at audiences, what's that actual audience? What's a focused consumer group that I want to appeal to? Who is that audience going to be? And so you can, just a note on audiences, you can make that specific, but then have several of them. But in general, for publicity, it's broader, right? You want to be in a news outlet that isn't just your customer, so you can grow. 1, you don't want to be limited in the amount of outlets that you can be published in, right? If it's too, niche of a story and it's slightly newsworthy, or if it's too much like a trade, we'll talk about that a little bit. We want to, yes, do trades. We want to do other things. We want to do things in our industry, but many of you have a lot of industry, experience that has been published already, but maybe we have less mentions in the national outlets, less mentions in spaces, and we want to be in different spaces. So you can say my audience is what your targeted customer group is, like, professionals that earn $100,000 a year with a lot of disposable income. You can say that, but that's really only one group. So if you do approach it that way, make sure you include a lot and some broader groups. And then in terms of goals, you know, what's needed to achieve success and improve the situation. So you look above and say, I need to be viewed as the expert, to be viewed as more exciting, more interesting, have better quality, have different attributes than my number one competitor. The goal is, you can put a number to it and go big. The goal is to double my sales through more traffic to my website through publicity. And those are some good goals. Pencil those in, 1, 2, 3. And then, calculate a budget a little bit. So again, that might be something that your budget is 0. But you need to pencil something in, maybe your time. Maybe there's a couple of things you do want to hire someone from the outside for. Maybe you think you'll be better off if you can have someone help you write or work with you on an editorial calendar or some of your media kit. Maybe it's a local designer or a friend who's going to help you polish off that logo and kind of put some of those items together with you or for you on a page. So if that's the case, write some budgets for these things. What's the budget? If it's 0, write 0, no big deal. We're going to go back up here and look at objectives. So here's our detailed expectations. So we kind of have our broad-based problems and situations and who it's going to be broadcast to and who we want it to appeal to. But specifically, and this will kind of feed into your editorial calendar, who's going to do the work? Is that all you, or again, do you have someone that you work with that's going to help you? If you work for someone else, you might be able to bring this into the business a little bit and have some of your in-house people work with you on your stuff, depending on your situation. What's the deadlines and what's your metric for success? You got to have an expectation, right, guys? You gotta say, I don't want to just be published. How do I know when I'm doing well? Is a metric for success 3 stories in 6 months on this is a metric for success. Certain percentage of traffic from those sources. I mean, basically, when you get this right, you'll just know, right? Like, you'll have that feeling, just like in your business, when you're busy, because now you're making more chocolate bars, right? Now you're making many more baked goods, and you're just busy and you feel busy. But you really need metrics to make sure you don't just feel busy. That's an indicator, right, that we're on the right path. But what's the indicator that we're meeting our goals and that's successful? And then strategy, in the simplest terms, what's your strategy? Is it, this we can flesh out because part of it next week we'll go deeper into, but is it, press release a month, newsletter a month, finding a way to byline articles or, get a column? I mean, I can tell you, for me, what was helpful is when I was queued up to receive a top 10 pastry chef award. So in our industry, right, that's a good award to get. And it's something that had been a goal, for no other reason than just I wanted to be in the top of the field. And I felt like I was working really hard. But if you think about it, if you get an award like that, you probably deserve it anyway. And probably there are a lot of people that deserve it that don't get those awards. So when I got the call, I said, hey, do you want to be included this year in the top 10 pastry chef? I said, yeah, I do. You know what I'd like even more is if you would give me a byline article, a column in every issue of your magazine. And, I guess that kind of took them aback a little bit. And they said, sure, why not? Because, again, they're always looking for content. Every issue, every month, they're like reaching out, trying to generate content. And now you have someone that you're kind of anointing as one of the best in the field, and you're giving them the opportunity to get content all the time. And what's the worst thing that will happen? It goes 1 or 2 issues and then stops. Still good, right? Well, we did that for several years in every issue for material handling. And, that enabled us on the byline side to give shine to other pastry chefs, to products we thought were exciting, to, again, continue to network and connect with people, and also to broadcast my own work. So that's just one avenue, bylining. And that's sort of, positioned in between marketing. It is marketing and PR. But when you have that byline, it opens up the opportunity to get into different places. It opens up doors that we can get into. So in your strategies, be broad. Maybe your strategy is to be on, a blog. Make it diverse. A blog, to be in print somehow, if wherever is still printing, to be in major magazines and list them off, Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, whatever it is, whatever you think is going to be great, and make it broad in your strategy and how you're going to get there. And then, tactics. How does the business plan to get there? Do you plan to get there by having a day a week or an hour a week where you review it and you work on it? What do you need? Is there some resources you don't have? Maybe it's a little bit, some new wardrobe if you're planning to make some, visual appearances, TV experiences. Maybe you need to say, hey, what's the presentation style that I want? And, again, all of this stuff, you can change it at any time. Maybe for some things, you want one presentation style. When I'm in the kitchen, for example, I definitely want to have a chef jacket on, an apron if I'm touching food. That's important. People see that and think chef. But for a class like this, if I were to dress in a chef coat and a hat and, whatnot, it would be kind of silly. It's not really important. It's how you present yourself could be something that you may need to make it happen to think about. And then finally, the timeline overview. Schedule in your publicity events, when those things need to happen. Again, this will feed into your editorial calendar. So all those things. And, essentially that's your business plan outline. That's the homework for the week, is to complete that outline. So if you think of something sometimes right when this is done, that's the best time to think about it. Write a few things down that came while it's still top of mind, put it away, go about your day, and go from there. So I hope you enjoyed all that content. It was a little bit involved, and I want you guys to know that if you do the work, you're going to get publicity, right? You're going to get your name out there, and just think that leads to more things for your business, and it kind of starts to move and to motivate more growth, right? And more expansion, which of course here we're all about. Thank you so much for, spending your Monday morning with me early. If you have any questions, I'm going to keep it open for a little bit on the chat, and then we'll talk to you this week. And of course, we'll see you next week. Be well.